Local presentation of Read About It is made possible in part by a grant from Cox Communications of Oklahoma City, proud sponsor of this effort to promote reading, education, and literacy in our community.
Adventure in Egypt will be the topic on Read About It tonight. Hi, I'm BJ Williams. With me is Richard Trout to talk about his latest book, Falcon of Abydos. Susie Beasley will be talking with Derek Cash. Kids Corner will feature Rosemary Zarsky. We also have Doug Benton, Clyde Martin, and Teresa Goggins. Coming up, Richard Trout.
The following public service program is brought to you by the Metropolitan Library System. And now, Read About It, with your host, BJ Williams.
Richard Trout is an Oklahoma writer who writes for young adults. He has a series about a very adventurous scientific family. The latest in this series is Falcon of Abydos, and it is set in, I'm guessing, Egypt, right?
That's right.
And what is happening to the McGregor family this time around?
Well, after big adventures in the Cayman Islands and East Africa, the dad is attending an environmental conference in Cairo and drags the family along. And of course, in the entire McGregor Family Adventure series, the kids are always finding something to get involved in. And this time they stumble into an Arab crime syndicate and possibly some clues about some lost pharaoh treasure. And so it turns out to be a terrific, fun adventure for them.
It starts off with kind of a bang, actually. They go off for a very innocent picnic with the pyramids as a picturesque background, and
right.
It sort of goes downhill after that, doesn't it, Richard?
Yes, they're known for taking little forays out into the wilderness that turn into major adventures. It seems like they're a victim of their own fun that they try to develop it as a family.
Now, the family consists of the mom and dad, who are both scientists.
Right.
And then the three kids. Now, there's Chris, who is the oldest boy.
Right,
He's
Chris.
17, 18, something like
right.
that. And then Heather.
Right, 14.
14, and then the pest of the family.
Yes.
I can say that. I had one of those in my family.
Yeah.
Ryan, or as he prefers to be called,
R.O. Right, 12.
Actually, I think he's the magnet for all the trouble.
I think you're right. He's kind of a little Thomas Edison. He's always inventing things and getting himself into trouble while he does it. And so a lot of the focus of the other two kids are trying to keep him out of trouble. And so eventually they all get drawn into some major adventure, and that makes the cohesiveness of the family, because the dad is a zoologist, the mom is a paleontologist, and she's from London, and so it adds an international flavor to the family like that.
Now they're based in Texas, but
right.
Dad has a year-long sabbatical, and so they're just dropping in to clean up whatever's going wrong in this or that part of the world, actually.
That's right, and that's how it all starts, because in the first book, Cayman Gold, they're actually in a diving adventure around sea turtles and reefs in the Cayman Islands, and then they're drawn into the ivory poaching, which has resurfaced in the last year or two, and that's why I wrote it for young adults, because I wanted kids to be aware of some of the environmental problems that still exist, without a lot of tree-hugging hype, a lot of moderation for them to understand these issues are real, and then taking them on with Falcon of Abydos. A big problem with the Nile River that no one's aware of. And so there's a lot of teaching going on in the book, as well as the adventure that they're drawn into.
Mm-hmm. Well, they get, as you said, involved in an Arab crime syndicate. I believe there are a couple of Russian former spies.
KGB agents, right. It was interesting. I wrote this novel this summer before the attack on 9/11. And I did have an Arab crime syndicate involved, some Arab terrorists that were involved, a lot of corruption within the Egyptian government. And so I had one last look at it after the attack, and I decided that this would be a great learning experience for kids to put it into an adventure, maintain it as it is. And so I think it turned out very well, and kids are going to get something more out of it than I ever thought after the September 11th attack.
Right. Now, obviously, because of your background, you're a professor at Oklahoma City Community College.
Right.
So you already know a little bit about the environmental problems, but I would imagine that there's a certain amount of research that you do before you write the
absolutely. This was a fun book to write. It was a fun book to research. I I think I went through about a couple of dozen books on Egypt, trying to learn how to read hieroglyphics so I could develop the mystery in it better. Interviewing lots of people, had a couple of Egyptologists read it for accuracy, and so it's a very educational book. But it was with every book I write, I learned something new, and it was fabulous.
So you didn't have to force yourself to actually take a trip down the Nile to write the book?
No, that's right. But with any sort of adventure fiction, that's the whole idea, is to write something escape for the kids. And I think that's why these are popular in so many schools, is that it allows the kids to get into the shoes of R.O., the 12-year-old, or Heather, the 14-year-old, or Chris, the 17-year-old, and do all the things they do, the excursions out in the middle of the Sahara in a great storm, or a trek across the Serengeti, or diving on a reef on the Cayman Islands.
Well, as I mentioned earlier, this is the kind of book that I had to sort of cross over to the boys section to find when I was in school, because they weren't writing this kind of adventure for girls when I was growing up. So it's great to see that they're all included. One of the questions that was in my mind when I was reading it was, are these kids modeled on anybody that you know?
Oh yes, of course. As a dad of two daughters who are now 18 and 20, both of my kids fit into the characters. Actually, Chris has a lot of the characteristics of my oldest daughter, even though he's a male character, and then Heather fits into my youngest daughter, and of course R.O. is the son I never had, and if I was going to mold one, that would be the kid I would want.
Well, he would certainly keep you up late at night, I think.
That's right. Well, he's quite an adventurous spirit, and the most of the email and fan mail that I get has to do with R.O., the 12-year-old, and what's he going to do next, or can you make him do this? And so he's a very popular character.
Well, he's the one, as you said earlier, he's the one that when they're on a guided tour of this museum or that ancient temple, and everybody else is following the guide, and all of a sudden they realize R.O.'s not there. He's found something that attracted his eye somewhere else, and usually that's what leads to trouble. I think at one point actually his side excursion actually saved the family, because as a gunman was sneaking up on them, R.O. in effect ended up behind the gunman so he could warn everybody.
Yes, that was in the title of that chapter was House of Tutmos, and I try to model these real places and find them geographically as a learning tool for kids. But yeah, R.O. was out doing something on his own and comes up behind the bad guy, and as one of the reviewers of one of my other books called them, the nasty bad guys, and so that's what I try to make them. And it's just as difficult writing about evil as it is reading it, but it's realism. And I like kids to experience that.
Yeah, well, it is certainly something that they encounter when they turn on the TV, and even if they don't watch the news very much, there are some things you can't avoid hearing something about.
That's right, and with my novels, and especially with this one, I like to have the balance of the happy family, the cohesive unit that kids can associate with, and maybe they don't have that at home, but if they read about it, it creates within the spirit of maybe attaining that someday, and so it sets us a model for them, I think.
Well, and it presents the children as being capable and able to do something about the world they're in, which I think, particularly for the age group that you're writing about, and this is just based on what I remember growing up. It's nice to read, yeah, there are kids out there and you can do something about your world. I mean, you can affect what's going on around you to a certain extent, and I think that's very important.
Yes, that's right, and I think that comes through in the major character, Chris, who turns 18 in this book, because he is undeterred in everything he is challenged by, and he's a great character, a fine young man, and a role model, I think, for any young man that would like to achieve what he does. And so I wrote it especially for that. Now, you mentioned finding this in areas for books for boys. I get a lot of fan mail from girls who like Heather, the 14-year-old. And of course, they may fall in love with Chris too. He's 17. And of course, the mom, Mavis, is just a terrific character and interacts with the kids quite well, showing discipline, but also interacting with their adventures as well.
Well, she's definitely not trying to to stomp on them in any way. She's just trying to keep them safe, which
That's right.
given those kids is a little tricky.
Allow them to grow safely. That's right.
Right. Well, I want to thank you very much, Richard, for being with us today.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
We've had with us today Richard Trout telling us about his new book, Falcon of Abydos, which you will be able to find very shortly in bookstores and your local library. Coming up next, we have Susie Beasley. She'll be talking with Derek Cash about a book I think you'll all enjoy.
Derek, how is this book arranged into the Tangle of Friendship by Beth Keppert?
She arranges it in a series of vignettes where she talks about different friendships that had occurred when she was growing up, but also the friendships that she has currently in her life.
So does the author differentiate between friendships of men and women?
She does in a way. Most of the friendships that she talks about are her women friends, but she does talk about her husband as a friend, and she brings up the fact that when they went back to El Salvador after 20 years absence, he was able to pick up with men that he had known, and what they did was they talked about everything they'd done in the past.
Right.
Whereas friendships that she has with other women, they tend more to talk about the friendships in the present. And so that was a sort of a difference that she noted between not all, but many men and women.
So does the author suggest why some friendships survive?
Yes. She noted that with older people, that the reason a friendship might survive is a sense of mercy. The fact that this friendship is going to survive because I want it to, that even though you might have told a lie or maybe you're chronically late, I think the friendship is so valuable, I'm going to overlook that. So she noted that friendships that lasted 30, 40 years is because people had mercy upon each other.
Right, there was an acceptance there. So Ms. Keppert, she brings about this friendship story or these vignettes. Well, how do friendships occur?
Okay. She notes that without actually defining friendship, because it's not a textbook, it's not a psychiatrist's view into what makes friendship. She just looks at it as her own memoir. But she notices that friendships come in waves. You know, maybe in high school, maybe when you're at work, the friendships that you have in your neighborhood, or maybe your church or club meetings. But she also notices that some people are willing to sacrifice a friendship in order to grab or latch on to what they may think is a better friendship. So sometimes they don't last a lifetime, but they just come in waves.
Come in waves and everything. So this is her first work?
No, it is her second. She had written a previous work about her son when he was 2 years old. He'd had a serious illness, and so that was her first work. This is her second book.
Okay. Well, Derek, we really appreciate you coming and sharing with us Into the Tangle of Friendship by Beth Keppert, a memoir of things that matter. And this is a fairly new book, and it's available at your local library and perhaps your local bookstore. And we'll see you next time. Thank you, Derek.
Oh, thank you.
Thanks, Susie and Derek. And now I have a couple of books for you. This first one is entitled Reflections on a Ravaged Century. It is by Robert Conquest, who is currently the Senior Research Fellow at the Hoover Institution at Stanford. He's held posts at the London School of Economics, Columbia University, and the Woodrow Wilson International Center. He has written history, biography, criticism, translation, fiction, and poetry, and is considered the preeminent historian of our day. Now, this book is, as he said, Reflections on a Ravaged Century. It's about the 20th century, which has so recently passed. And I think most of us might consider that today we're facing something in the 21st century. We don't need to worry too much about what has gone before. That the 20th century and Mr. Conquest's observations on it are remarkably on point on what we are facing today, because he looks at the 20th century through the prisms of both Nazism and communism, the two major killing ideologies, if I can put it that way, of the 20th century. And he looks at what they were and what their appeal was. What was it about Nazism and communism that made them appeal to people? How did they actually function? How did they manage to create the kind of chaos, death, and destruction that they managed in the 20th century? This is the kind of book that you will read almost every page. You will come across a sentence or a statement that Conquest makes that you say, yes, that's right. Why didn't I think of that? Of course, that's the way it is. This is an incredibly remarkable look at the 20th century. And as I said, so much of what he says about, really what he's talking about actually is ideology. How does it get a grip on people? What does it do to people and to cultures? I think you will find a great deal of what he has to say about the 20th century can be applied to the 21st century as well. A highly enjoyable book. Now, for those of us who would like a little bit of escape from what's going on in our world today, maybe you'd like to get into collecting pottery, and here's a book that will help you get started. It's Frankoma and Other Oklahoma Potteries by Phyllis and Tom Bess. This is a Schiffer book for collectors. Now, if you have a piece of pottery or you just inherited one and are wondering, is it worth anything? Should I try to hang on to it? Should I try to sell it? Should I just throw it away? This is one of the books that you'll want to go to the library and get, particularly now that 50s and 60s home decor is making a comeback. Lots of people are scrambling for these kind of things. You may have a treasure collecting dust on your top shelf, and this book will help you find out. It's the third expanded edition. It begins with the Frankoma pottery, but it also looks at the history of many other Oklahoma potteries, Tamac, Sequoia, Cherokee, and Winard. They document the clays, glazes, and trademarks by which each firm is identified, the variety of materials they produce. There are over 400 illustrations here of the really myriad kinds of pottery that Oklahoma potteries have produced in the 20th century. There are estimated values on all of these pieces, and so you can find out if your sculpture or vase or dinnerware is worth anything by looking at Frankoma and Other Oklahoma Potteries. Coming up next, we have Kids Corner. Kelly Rhea talked with Rosemary Zarsky about a book for young adults.
We have another delightful children's book. It's actually for, what would you say, 8 to
about 12-year-olds, maybe 14-year-olds.
Excellent. And what's the name of the book this time?
It's called Write Me If You Dare.
Ooh.
And it's by Emily Rhodes Johnson.
Sounds excellent. Write Me If You Dare by Emily Rhodes Johnson for 8 to 12-year-olds. And who's the main character in this book?
It's an 11-year-old named Maddie. She is the female in the family now because her mother has died 3 years before the story opens. She does everything with her dad. You know,
So she's the grown-up girl in her house.
She feels like she's the lady of the house because they just couldn't operate without her, and that's pretty much the way it looks. But then she is on a walk with her dog and discovers a popped balloon with a message that says, "Write me if you dare," and gives an address.
Oh my, so Write Me, and so that must be where the title comes from.
And she does write the letter to the address, and everybody tells her you won't get a reply, you know, that. And she does get a reply. And this helps make her way in school not seem quite the challenge that it normally does, because she's not interested in boys yet, and all her fellow mates are.
But she has a lot of adventure in her life, keeping up the household.
Right.
And she writes this letter, and we don't want to give it away, but does she get a reply?
Oh yes, she gets a reply, and so she starts a correspondence. They have a pen palship going on, and that's how her outlet for telling her distress when her father meets a woman that he thinks he would like to marry. You know, she's been the lady for 3 years. She's not sure she wants anyone else in the family grouping.
I bet there's a lot of kids that have to deal with possibly a new parent, or their parent is dating someone, so that would be a little distressing.
And it's interesting to see how she matures through the book to accept or not accept the situation.
Oh, wow. When she does get the letter, is it what she expects?
it's got strange words in it because they're words that aren't in common use anymore, but she thinks, oh, well, this person's just likes to read a lot, just like me. And so she talks back and forth, and eventually, for some reason, she decides that the person that's writing to her is actually a ghost.
Oh, how exciting. Well, you can find this book at your local library or at your favorite bookstore.
Thanks, Rosemary and Kelly. It's time now for the New York Times bestseller list. We'll start out with hardback fiction. Number 10 on that list is Falling Angels by Tracy Chevalier, Separation of Power by Vince Flynn, Narcissus in Chains by Laurel Hamilton, The Best Loved Poems of Jacqueline Kennedy Onassis, selected by Caroline Kennedy, Black House by Stephen King and Peter Straub, Blood and Gold by Anne Rice, The Corrections by Jonathan Franzen, A Bend in the Road by Nicholas Sparks. Number 2 is Isle of Dogs by Patricia Cornwell, and number 1 is Nora Roberts' Midnight Bayou. On the nonfiction list, number 10 is The Queue by Quincy Jones, War in a Time of Peace by David Halberstam, Islam by Karen Armstrong, Fire by Sebastian Junger, Crossing Over by John Edward, John Adams by David McCullough, Jack, Straight from the Gut by Jack Welch with John Byrne, The No Spin Zone by Bill O'Reilly, The Final Days by Barbara Olson is number 2, and Germs by Judith Miller, Stephen Engelberg, and William Broad is number 1. On the children's list, number 10 is Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them by Newt Scamander, Corduroy's Best Halloween Ever by Don Freeman, Surprise, Surprise by Megan Stein, The Amber Spyglass by Philip Pullman, The Princess Diaries by Meg Cabot, Tagaroon by Brian Jacques, Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone by J.K. Rowling, The Hostile Hospital by Lemony Snicket. Number 2 is Lemony Snicket's The Bad Beginning, and number 1 is Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire by J.K. Rowling. Coming up next, we have Doug Benton from the Metropolitan Library System and the Oklahoma Gazette. He will be talking with that renowned radio opera host and actor, Clyde Martin, about a book I think you'll all enjoy.
Thank you, BJ. Doug, are you already looking ahead to Halloween?
I'm always looking ahead to Halloween. Come Christmas, I'm looking ahead to Halloween.
This book is called A Pleasing Terror by M.R. James.
M.R. James, Montague Rhodes James, known as Monty to his friends, was a provost of Eton College in England. He was born in 1862, and he lived until 1936. And he was he was an academic, an antiquary. His specialty was ancient manuscripts, especially those dealing with biblical apocrypha, okay? This guy did not write for the comics, all right? He was a very brilliant man, but he was a member of a group of academics who met on Saturday night. It was called the Chit Chat Club. And they would read to each other the papers that they were working on or try out speeches that they were working on. And just for fun, sometimes they would write short stories and read them. And in 1893, after having been a member of the club for about 10 years, James brought in a ghost story that he had written. And he read it and everybody loved it. Now, this was kind of a thing going on in English universities, apparently. In the Victorian era, Lewis Carroll had begun it, and then later on, C.S. Lewis and J.R.R. Tolkien and some others did this same sort of thing in the 20th century. But anyway, the ghost story was appreciated, and word got around the campus that old Monty wrote a pretty scary little ghost story. And so for various occasions, he was asked to write another one. And every year at Christmas, he produced one. Well, by 1904, he had enough of these things to publish in a small book called Ghost Stories of an Antiquary. And if you like ghost stories, I mean, it really took the public by storm. This was the first time that most people had seen them, because when they were published, if at all, they were in little literary magazines or college magazines and that sort of thing. He ended up writing about 33 in his lifetime. He was a bachelor, a lifelong bachelor. As provost of Eton, he was in charge of the chapel and the meetings of some of the organizations, and he worked a lot with the boys. And the boys loved Monty, and they loved his stories. In 1927, for one of a meeting of Boy Scouts, he wrote a special story for the Scouts and read it to them, in which a pack of ghouls attack Boy Scouts and drink their blood.
Oh
and the
my.
boys loved it. They just went nuts. And I thought, yeah, I bet their parents wouldn't have loved it if they'd known about it in advance. It was violence towards children. But he was a much beloved figure. Anyway, this collection is the first time that all of his stories and everything that he wrote about ghost stories have appeared in one volume, along with a fantasy novel he wrote for children called The Five Jars. And most of these things are very rare, especially the novel. It's only been reprinted a couple of times since his death. His collected ghost stories have been in print continuously since 1931, but this is the first time that all the stories, including some fragments and some things that nobody knew he had written, have all come together in one volume. So if you like the traditional classic chilly little ghost story, this is the place to go.
Good. Well, thank you very much, Doug. It sounds like his life would make a good movie.
It would.
Thanks again.
Thanks, Doug and Clyde. With me now is Teresa Goggins, the webmaster of the Metropolitan Library System, and she is here today to tell us about the new website that the library has. And it's a little bit different from the old Metro Library site, isn't it?
Yes, it is. I want to say, first of all, thanks for having me on the show. And some of the new features of our new website, first of all, we have a new address, which is metrolibrary.org. And so it starts off there. And that brings up our brand new webpage, which some of the new links that we have added onto our brand new webpage is the Find Your Library. Now on the Find Your Library, you have a list of various libraries that you can go through and see which one is closest to your neighborhood. And on that page, you can go to the calendar from that page, or you can just go to that particular library and find out about books, cards, the library cards, and other information and different programs that's going on at that individual library.
Now the calendar is actually a calendar of all the programs that we're doing for a particular month in every library in the system. As you said, you can go either to your library or just find out there's a program somewhere in the system.
Exactly. It's a system-wide calendar, or it's the by your library calendar. It's however it's your preference. And it's a really neat calendar. You ought to go on it and just use it and just look at some of the features and just visit the page. Some of our other new features that we have on our new site, of course, we've added Read About It and Ask a Librarian, which allows you to ask a question to your nearest librarian, and they'll respond to you by email. Another one of our great features that we have is just not for library users, but just for everyday users, the At Your Service page. Now that's one of our big features of our new website. Now on the At Your Service page, you can get your sports scores of the games, of the most recent games that's been going on. You can get the movie listings for Oklahoma City. Let's say after work you want to go to the movies. You can go to this site and see what's showing at the movies, get movies reviewed. Also on the site we have the top 10 bestseller books from the New York Times. We also have you can go on that site and sign up for Chapter a Day. We also have Oklahoma City TV listings, so what's showing on the channels, you can go on there and see what's showing for the day. And they just have a lot of treasures on this page.
It's just kind of basic information for what's happening here in Oklahoma City.
Well, no, not for Oklahoma City. It's for national, too. On this Extra Service page, we have national news. We have the weather for what's going on in Oklahoma City. You can enter a zip code and find out what the weather is going to be in another city. And it takes you back to our page. It have pop-up windows, so you can always come back to our page. We have local news, which is in the news here. As you can see, in the news, we have News OK, the Black Chronicle. We have local news sites on our webpage. So you can just start here at our page and visit all the pages, and then still come back to our page and check out your books. So it serves all features, not only just for the library, but for users outside of the library.
So it's a general information. I can go in there and find out things even if I'm not particularly looking for a book today. Exactly. Although that is something that I want to emphasize. Some people, you can find books on the internet. Yes, you can.
Yeah, we have books and CDs and videotapes. So we have more services. And what our new website is trying to attract more users and expand those services and let the users know that we have more than just books. We have a dictionary on our Extra Service page, as well as a new kids page that I like to mention, in which we have book reviews from the kids page, in which they've read a book and tell about it on our new page.
Okay, thank you very much, Teresa, for
Thank
being
you.
with us. And remember, you can find this all at www.metrolibrary.org. Look us up and find out what you're missing. And thanks very much for being with us, and we'll see you again next time.